Catherine, today we are talking about the June 2023 market update for Edmonton. You excited?
I am so excited. It was a wonderful June, beautiful summer. We're very lucky and it's continuing on this week too. So, yeah, great market so far.
And more specifically today, what we're going to be talking about, we're doing a special segment and we're going to be talking about why Alberta, and more specifically, why Edmonton, and why does it seem like everyone's moving here? I know it seems kind of crazy. Edmonton has its nicknames, but there's a lot of really strong points that push, people moving to Edmonton, which is why I think we've seen such a strong start this year and continue to see high immigration numbers for Alberta. We're going to go ahead and tell you
Mhm.
guys today what are some of the reasons why everyone is moving here. Not everybody, but it seems like it. Now, Catherine, you've worked with a lot of clients when it comes to, moving over from other provinces into Alberta, but I also know that you used to live in BC, our neighbors to the west.
I did. Yes. So I think that's maybe what helps me with the relocation strategy, and helping clients make that big change because it is a big change. And normally they're moving across the country. It's not just a province over. So to essentially assimilate into a new community. Sometimes there's a little bit of a culture shock depending on the size of the community. But for myself, coming from BC to Alberta was obviously a positive move. I love BC. There's so much to love there. Every time I visit, I sometimes question my move, but at the same time, Alberta has so many opportunities, and I think the rest of Canada and then obviously worldwide is starting to see that too. Whether it's our affordability, whether it's the ability to purchase a home, much sooner than you normally would have the opportunity to. Our average, or sorry, our median income is quite high. And of course, just in general, the opportunity here, we are expanding day by day, to accommodate all of the immigration that's happening. So I know we have a few statistics today to share with you just to show you how much that's affected our real estate market. And then, of course, just our communities, our government in general. But we are ever growing. And apart from that, of course, we only have GST here in Alberta, so that makes things a little bit easier too. So,
So we're
yeah,
gonna we're gonna take this suitcase that Catherine has just delivered to you guys, and we're gonna unpack it a little bit. Okay. So Catherine brought up a point.
there's a
Now,
lot.
my big
Yeah.
question to you, Catherine, what's the biggest change that you've noticed? You specifically, what have you noticed moving from BC to Alberta? Because there's a lot of people that are
Mhm.
questioning, there's a lot of people moving from Ontario, BC, out of country. What's the biggest change that you've noticed?
Well, the biggest change is, of course, like a financial change. Um, Calvin and I actually just came back from Vancouver from a real estate conference, and anytime I do travel to BC, it's a reminder of how grateful I am for only GST. You don't want to purchase as much when you can save so much here in Alberta. So we don't have a provincial sales tax, or we don't have the harmonized sales tax. So that is a huge benefit in your day-to-day expenses and your day-to-day budgeting as well. That's the biggest thing I noticed when I moved here. There's been a lot of other changes, in our governments, just in the growth of Edmonton too. There's sections of Edmonton that were not here when I first moved here, and that was about, oh gosh, almost 10 years ago now. So, but I'm a Edmontonian or an Albertan through and through with a hint of BC in me as well. So you never leave your home province um, too much behind.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Very cool. Well, let's go ahead and share what, everyone's wondering, what is the actual difference of, purchasing in Alberta versus everywhere else in Canada to date. So let's take a look and see
Yeah.
what the difference is. And we'll go ahead and send you guys these. We'll share the links that we're using as well afterwards. So if you guys want to do any kind of additional research, there's always the real estate nerds out there that like to look at the hard stats like we do. So you're going to have the opportunity to go ahead and do that. So that being said, let's get this on the board. Internet connection seems to be a challenge today, but don't worry, that's not Edmonton specific. That's Telus specific. So
No.
let's go ahead and get this on the board. Here we go. So when we're looking across Canada, I mean, if you could pick, you're an alien, you came down and you could pick anywhere to live in Canada, right? That's kind of the view that I'm coming in. I don't have any kind of bias. I've never been anywhere yet. So you don't really know, where you want to live. But based off of pricing and affordability, Catherine mentioned a couple good golden nuggets here. So one of the reasons why a lot of Albertans are coming back to Alberta once they've migrated out to another province, which is a very large stat, or immigration to permanent residency in Alberta, more specifically Edmonton, is because they can get into home ownership faster. So there's a lot of and Albertans that are listening to this right now know that I think the average age of someone purchasing a home, purchasing a home in like Ontario or BC, I think the average age starts at like 37, 38. So it's quite late in your life where you can start building equity. And there's a large portion of your life of which you're paying rent and not actually generating any type of,
Mhm.
you're not really getting ahead when it comes to home ownership. A lot of Albertans are purchasing a home much earlier on, and they already have maybe 10 to 15 years of mortgage pay down by the time a lot of these other residents in other provinces get into home ownership. So we get started a lot
Mm.
earlier. Now, let's look at the actual numbers here. So let's start from our neighbors to the west. I mean, homeownership is considerably higher, obviously, as you can see in Vancouver. Calgary, considerably higher than Edmonton as well. Edmonton's, this is May 2023. So these stats are very relevant, very updated. 420,000. So, I mean, when it comes to overall pricing, we tend to be just the more affordable, and like Catherine is saying as well, that combined with job opportunities, unemployment rates, average earnings, there's a lot of reasons why people are looking at moving here. And to sprinkle on top the nice little benefits for those that hate land transfer tax, for those that hate or dislike PST, those are also some advantages as well because we do not carry those yet. Knock on
Yeah.
wood, Catherine. I hope we don't
Hopefully.
catch the. We don't want to catch that trend.
No.
We do not want that trend. So hopefully we can stick without. But I mean, yeah, affordability. You don't have to worry about getting, at the age of 30, buying a van and living down by the river as your home because that's the only affordable point. You can actually look at purchasing in Alberta for again a very affordable price.
Mhm.
Investment real estate. So if you're one of those people and you're like, you know what, I can't live in Alberta. I have too much family where I'm at. I my job is here. I don't have the opportunity of just picking up and leaving. Completely understand that. I'm going to let you know another reason why we have so many out of province buyers right now as well. So, investment real estate is very advantageous in the province. And when it comes to the certain rules that we have here versus not only just affordability, but certain rules that we have are quite a bit different than a lot of the other provinces. I would say the biggest Alberta advantages that we see are things like the landlord tenant rules. We tend to be a lot more favorable to the landlord in Alberta versus the tenant. Now, if you're in another province and you've experienced the Residential Tenancy Board Act in other provinces, you're probably not a huge fan. I'm just going to be honest. We work with a lot of investors all across Canada. You're probably not a fan in most provinces. In Alberta, it's relatively easy if you have a tenant that's not paying rent, it's relatively easy to get them out. Okay.
Mm.
When it comes to rental market increases, so when rents increase because there's a shortage in housing, or maybe there's something where it's just unaffordable for, a certain demographic and you want to get into renting for a temporary, we can increase rents and there's no threshold as long as it's outside of 365 days. Okay. So you have the ability to hit market trends and where the market actually is and correct your rents relatively fast as opposed to having a cap. Where I know a lot of other provinces will have a cap of, 2%, 3%, which obviously makes it a lot more difficult, especially if your mortgage goes up. I mean, Captain, think of it this way. Your mortgage, you just bought you bought in BC. Obviously, you're not going to cash flow for the most part, right? Maybe Airbnb you might, but again, there's many rules in
Mhm.
Airbnb that they would have versus us. um, interest rates go up, but you can't increase your rents to the same synergistic level. So if mortgage rates go up because they're on a variable and they've gone up, say, by 1.5% in a calendar year, you can't increase your, I mean, you're going to be limited on how much you can increase your rent to be able to hit
Mm,
that line. If it goes up 3%, I mean, you're limited, right? So your cash flow can get
yeah.
eaten up quite a bit by how much is going towards the mortgage. So
Mhm.
it that limitation, that cap definitely
I would say
affects
you
you
need
big
an
time.
yeah, there
So
overall needs to
one of the
be a higher amount of cash there. Yeah. Sorry, we have a lag.
definitely
I was just saying there needs to be a higher amount of cash before you purchase in BC, just for the inevitable. I find there's so many more smaller risks that we don't account for here in Alberta. And exactly that. If rents, if you're not able to find that from your tenants, you still need to pay your bills. So, um, absolutely couldn't agree more.
definitely. Now, Catherine, we're going to go into the actual stats for Edmonton here right away. Okay, so for those stat junkies, don't worry, we're going to go ahead and share your
Mhm.
screen right away. But Catherine, you work with a lot of relocation clients. So you work with a lot of clients, a lot of families that are looking at moving into Alberta. Maybe it's because of job, maybe it's because just getting into home ownership. Maybe they love their certain, they love the idea of Jasper, Banff. They love the idea of, Edmonton's massive green space, festivals, all that kind of stuff that we tend to offer. Very family oriented communities.
Yes.
What are the top three tips you can recommend to anybody that's looking at moving into Alberta or more specifically Edmonton?
Mhm. These tips I would necessarily say are hard and fast, but they're more so what are you looking for as a buyer? Why do you want to move here? Because we have a lot going for us here and our communities are growing and we have all this opportunity. But if it doesn't align with your needs or what you're looking for in your next, property or, your next chapter in life, then it might not make sense. Vancouver has their beautiful oceans, they have mountains, they have everything. Toronto definitely has its more, business sectors, a lot more just international power at that point. But here in Edmonton and Alberta specifically, we have the ability to have a big community, but still have those small personal interrelationships where we have the ability to connect with others, and it has that small town feeling in a bigger city, right? And you also have the option to live in smaller towns or be in the bigger hub cities, whichever is your preference. You have the ability to focus on different hobbies. If you love the mountains, they're there. If you prefer to have something smaller in it, it's really easy to meet people. So focus on what you want your lifestyle to look like. Because ideally, when we are helping our clients shop properties, that's my first initial question, rather than what kind of property do you want? Where do you want to be? What do you want your day-to-day life to look like? Who do you want to be around? Because that's overall going to contribute to your happiness. And then, of course, the purchase of a home all intertwines. It's not just one purchase. It's a lifetime of what you need. And regardless of your age as well, I've been working with a lot of adult living lately, and that's something we're seeing a little bit more and more of. So it gives you that opportunity to maybe extend that quality of life a little bit more into something that you might not be able to afford in a bigger city. I'm specifically talking about like half duplexes or, bungalows that give that opportunity. But near far in there, ideally, when you're moving to Alberta, think about the cost. Think about what you want your overall cost of living to look like in your day to day, your opportunity. And I mean, we're pretty great. I think Alberta's great. I'm always happy to come home. That's just me.
Amazing. Amazing. So the big
Yeah.
points that Catherine is talking about is just obviously understanding your wants and needs. As when you're moving here,
Yeah.
we want to understand what your wants and needs are. Do you want to be close to green space? Do you need to be close to your job? Um, what do
Yes.
you need? Do you want to be in the safest community in Edmonton? Do you want to be in the most family-oriented community? Do you want to be in the area that has the most boutique shops? Do you love farmers markets? These are all the questions that are going to be asked to be able to help immigrate you to the right area. And every area is so different. So it's important to understand again what your wants and needs are, but also your affordability. Catherine's going to be able to show you, or any realtor should be able to show you, which areas of the city are going to be the most affordable for you, which areas are the most up and coming, what areas have the most infrastructure to help support strong prices or demand, right? A lot of these other provinces are used to like major fluctuations in housing costs. We don't necessarily see that. I mean, you could purchase here and a month later the market fluctuates and it might be a $5,000 difference, where in other provinces we could
Mhm.
see a 50, 70, $80,000 difference. So these are all the questions that we go ahead and ask that I know that Catherine really spends time on, which is important. So these are the questions that we want you to ask you if you are considering Alberta. We're going to go through the stats here. I know we're going a little bit longer today. So let's go ahead and touch base on the stats relatively quick for everybody. I know that we're going to get a lot of hate mail if we don't go through the stats. So let's jump on them right now. So while we're getting this to load, things to be aware of is what market are we in right now? Well, we are between a seller's and a balanced market. Right now, we have about
Mhm.
between 2 to 3 months of inventory. Okay. So, again, 2 to 3 months of inventory. If there was not another property to come up on the market today, and based on the amount of volume of transactions that are occurring, we would be out of inventory in 2.74 months almost exactly. Okay. So, we always calculate how many months of inventory do we have to understand what type of market we are in. So because we're in that sellers to balanced market, we know that the sellers are going to have a little bit more of an advantage, meaning that you're going to have a little bit easier time to sell at this time of year than historically other times. Edmonton's very much known for a buyer's market versus a seller's market. So if you're considering selling, do you want to be in a seller's market, Catherine, or do you want to be in a buyer's market? What would you pick?
Now's the time. Got to hurry
You
up and get your property listed.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be in the seller's market. We're also seeing a 36% consumption rate in the market right now. When it comes to overall stats, let's go through overall month over month, we're down by 2.3% compared to last month. Year over year, we're 3.1% difference. Again, knowing that last year we hit records across Canada for average housing prices. Um, Single family detached specifically down by 2.7. Semi-detached were up by 0.2. Row and townhouses saw the biggest increase by 1.7% increase. And what's interesting is semi-detached and row townhouses actually see an increase comparatively to
By
last year.
increase.
So if you're living in one of those properties you bought in the last couple of years and you're considering selling, the equity that you've generated from it, whether you want to get a HELOC or whether you're looking at selling, there might be a little bit of a lift there for you to actually make some of a profit. Okay. Now, when it comes to new listings, overall, we are seeing a drop by 3.9% month over month, 15% drop compared to last year. Overall sales are down by 4.6% from last month to this month. I'm assuming that we're probably going to be pretty stable going into once we get July stats. But
Mhm.
overall, when it comes to inventory that's available, we still have a great amount of inventory that's available. You have a lot of options. You're going into the supermarket and the shelves aren't bare. You're not selecting one or two different items. You have many different selections. And just know that this is the time, Catherine, this is the time that you're going to have the most options on the shelves, right? This is where the shelves are stocked versus the winter where it's a little more scarce. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, now is not the time to be too picky if you are currently shopping. I would say it's a very strong sellers, well, sorry, a stable sellers market with a decent amount of strong inventory. We don't know what's going to happen as we enter into later July and August. Usually we do see some waves of busy seasons. Like we'll have two very busy weeks, and then a lot of people tend to go on holidays or the school year starts to come up. So just prepare your listing strategy around that. Be aware of it. But now's the time. So if your agent is pushing you to list, just listen. Trust them. It's a good time.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Catherine literally cannot lie. So when she says, listen to your agent when they say to list, you can actually follow that advice. It's great advice. Um, Average days on market are 40. Last year was 28. Last year's market was a little bit insane. So it's not really a full, historical. Is it a good average to go off of? 28 is very low. 40 is still very
Mhm.
respectful, and that's how many days it takes for an average property to sell for detached. Um, Catherine, there was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff in there. So for
Good.
anybody that's watching, if it felt like a lot, go ahead and press pause, rewind it to the start, watch it all over again. And if you have any questions, by any means, always reach out to us. Catherine, it's a pleasure, like every month, and I look forward to doing this again with you in August.
Sounds great. Yes, please don't hesitate to ask your questions as I know it's ever changing in our market. So thank you, Calvin, and I hope everyone has a great Sunday.
See you guys later. Bye.